Welcome to The Dreamboat. This is where we explore everything to do with dreams.
We are sponsored by the DRI Centre for Dream Studies, and you can find out more about our work in the show notes.
You can join us here every fortnight or at one of our dream courses, workshops, or retreats. Thank you for coming on board.
How often have you had a dream and found that someone close to you has dreamt the same thing? What if whole groups of people share a dream and that could help change society? Well, my guest today is Franca Fubini. Franca, a psychoanalytic psychotherapist and organisation consultant, is chair of the Social Dreaming International Network, which is a body that studies exactly this phenomenon, social dreaming. So, Franca, welcome.
Well, Laura, thank you very much first for inviting me. I'm very excited and pleased of this invitation to talk about social dreaming, which has been a field that I've been explored for many, many years by now. And maybe I start with saying what social dreaming and a bit of the history of social dreaming. It was, let's say, the methodology was invented by Gordon Lawrence around the 80s. And in the 80s, there was the first experience of social dreaming, a project which used social dreaming, but perhaps we get to that later. But he was also very keen in saying, I'm not the inventor of social dreaming, because sharing dreams, like as you said in your first sentence, and you discover that maybe your partner had a similar dream, or your children, comes from a culture, a human culture of sharing our nightlife or wherever we have dreams. And so he was very keen in saying, I'm not the inventor, I'm the inventor of a methodology to work with it. And his, the inspiration came from anthropological studies and what people do around the world with their dreams. It came from his work. He was working at the Tavistock Institute at that time. And he noticed that when there was group works, group relation works, and dreams emerged, were something always very meaningful. But people were not entering what the dream was about for fear of entering within, in the context of group work, to enter personal sphere. But anyway, he was observing how relevant and how revealing dreams could be for the life of the whole group. And that was his second support for his hypothesis that it's possible to dream socially. And in our culture, certainly the Western culture, certainly where we have been born, and also for profession, psychotherapy, psychoanalysis, it became a bit more confined within the analytic room. It was a move towards, but dreaming is so vast, it cannot be confined to the relationship between analyst and patient, let's call it like this, analyst. And but he still was not completely sure about launching this methodology. And then he happened to read, this maybe is a bit of the mythology of how social dreaming was born. He happened to read The Third Reich of Dreams.
We've just been taught, or we have spoken to Amanda Rubin, and people might have heard the podcast from Amanda about the Third Reich of dreams. What an amazing thing that is.
What an amazing thing that is. So I don't need to explain it because you know what it is.
No,
but it was...
Explain it for those who haven't heard that episode yet.
Yeah, okay. Well, basically, Charlotte Berath, who wrote The Third Reich of Dream, was living in Berlin during Nazi time and before the war. And she explores through an idea that she had of asking friends and GPs to collect the dreams of their patients. And then they were giving it to her. And her hypothesis was that it was a collection of people living under a totalitarian regime. And so the anxiety, the themes that were emerging were definitely not related to a personal, let's call it psychopathology, but definitely was a reflection of what it is like to live in a totalitarian regime. The story went that she had to go away. She emigrated to New York and managed in a very adventurous way to emigrate with all the dreams that she had collected and put into old books. Or anyway, she managed to arrive to New York with all that material, but she couldn't do anything, I suspect, because perhaps it was too traumatic at the time. And much later, she went to that material and eventually wrote the book, The Third Reich of Dreams, which is a way of reading what was happening, a piece of history and a piece also of psychic history in a way which spoke to society and not necessarily to individual. And that goes back now to the question, what is social dreaming? And social dreaming is literally when a collective of people get together, and they get together I get to that later, get together for the purpose of sharing their dreams and jointly find meaning, which is connected to the context they are sharing, which can be society, workplace, citizenship, just sharing and hopefully find a social meaning to what is going on and to the dreams. And in that context, is important the dream and not the dreamer. The dreamer gives voice to the dreams. The dreams connect to each other. And possibly when you open a social dreaming matrix, because it's called matrix. Now I go a bit by free association. Why is it called matrix, where social dreaming happens? Is it okay, Laura?
Yeah, I mean, I'm finding it fascinating. I mean, I have heard of the phrase social dreaming matrix, and I love it because it sort of feels like one of the Matrix films, that there's something else that you're stepping into, that there is this sort of collective force.
Yes. And it is a very interesting concept. And again, going back to history, Gordon Lawrence and actually also his colleagues, because they were still at the Tavistock.
I'll just interrupt you there, Franca. I should say to the audience, the Tavistock is the Tavistock Clinic in London, which is a psychodynamic centre that both trains psychotherapists and offers counselling and psychotherapy for men, women, children, whatever. And it was a big driving, and is still quite a very important force for psychotherapy, for the world of psychotherapy.
Mm-hmm. And in particular, if I add to that, it is where Gordon used to work was within the group relation conferences, which now is developed and managed in both places. But the one which is, how can I say, more focused on that and on consulting and so on, is the Tavistock Institute of Human Relations. And Gordon was one of the directors with Eric Miller of the program of group relations. Anyway, this is an aside. But it's important because he would describe the journey towards social dreaming also to find a word which was not as evocative as group, because by that time, getting towards the 80s, group had, particularly in London, particularly in the context of the Tavistock and the group relation, group has a very, had a very strong connotation, which would evoke group dynamics, conductors, leader, therapists, would have a whole, a whole baggage. And he used to talk of the necessity to create like a Faraday cage around social dreaming in order for the methodology to reveal what it's about. And it has taken quite few years to actually find it. It was a stroke of genius to call it matrix, which, by the way, was already matrix, as you say, is the movies, and it is the word for womb in Latin, and it's many things, but certainly it hasn't got the same configuration of a group. So that hence social dreaming matrix. And within a matrix, so a social dreaming matrix, a collective of people would gather with the task of telling their dreams and letting free association to the dreams develop in order to find connection, create links, and I'm talking about the task, and hopefully reveal new thinking and thoughts. That is what was the original hypothesis of Gordon Lawrence when he launched this project. And since then, just to say a few words which are still history, since then, social dreaming matrices have been held around the world and developed as a methodology which is, I would say, more and more recognized as a methodology which accesses the social sphere and has the possibility to transform thinking in a very, I would say, quite gentle way, because the focus is removed from the dreamer and all what happens belongs to a social sphere, which has a very, powerful impact on the dreamer, but the dreamer is not the focus. And so the whole dynamics that can enter in a one-to-one relationship or in a group relationship is left aside. And you're just giving voice. You're the channel for the dreams. And here I connect to your first bit of the question. And you are, how can I say, you realize that the dream is not yours when something
you
like
are not
this
the dream.
You are not the dream. And the dream can speak of something that is yours, of course, because you are giving voice, but also something of a reality which is bigger than your own personal question. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's very Jungian as a concept, isn't it?
Yes.
That there is a collective unconscious that's made conscious, arguably, through dreams, and that you can look at themes in the collective, which I personally love, obviously.
When you talked, maybe I have a dream and resonates with your partner's children or just friends. It's within the context of social dreaming, it's, in my experience, is when you realize that a dream that you had has been dreamt by someone else, more or less in the same way, or there is a theme which is circulating within the matrix. And that, I think, in my experience, is a stage where connections and links and the unconscious become very manifested to some extent.
Yeah. I was going to say, have you got any examples, of either dreams that you've noticed over the years, or I don't know, what springs to mind for you? How would you illustrate it?
Well, when I was talking about that, the image that came to mind is many, many years ago. It was part of some work that we did within, let's call it the creative world, where we were using music and movement. And so it wasn't like a group relation or a consultancy to an organization, but it was very deep work. And we had decided to start the day with the social dreaming matrix, with the hypothesis that it would access what we were doing much more efficiently and fast, and which was, and that was, I think on the second day of this, I don't know, it was a week workshop, a man tells a dream which seemed to be completely. He said, I don't know where this dream comes from, but I dreamt that I was I was in with a Swiss man, all dressed like he was going up the mountains and so on. And our relationship was completely incongruous. And he was sort of talking in sexual innuendos. And I can't relate to this. And within the group, there was a healer, and she said, oh, I know, that is my patient. He's trying to have access to me. I'm not, I'm here. And he probably found access to someone else, which can sound mad, but given the context and what happened, it was very plausible. It was not... it has a reality base for that. And this is where I started to notice when things happen and dreams that maybe you are not dreaming are dreamed by someone else. But this was quite striking. The fact that the patient could have access somewhere else could be very striking. But the fact that people can dream someone else's dream, I don't find, after many, many years of social dreaming, I don't find as an alien or a weird proposition. Actually not. Like, as you were saying, maybe you wake up and the whole family could have some similar dreams. Or we share context. And you were talking about COVID.
Well, I was interested about the pandemic, because at the DRI we put out as a piece of research, please send us your pandemic dreams. The common themes were really quite interesting. Did you find the same thing?
Well, yes, we also, I can say, there is an event within social dreaming which is called an ongoing matrix, which means that instead of being part of a consultation or part of a citizenship gathering or a large workshop or conference, is actually an ongoing dreams. And you join in the role of a citizenship or a dreamer. And usually it has... It started by having a location, like I did with my colleague in Rome, and we did once a month for 12 years. It was really an ongoing. People come and go, changed, but it was like there is a fixed appointment when you go talk about dreams, and the dreams have a meaning, which can be connected to society. And there is no need to, to say, I will be there like you do in therapy, and every month I will be there. It's completely open. And there was another one. It was a time when I was living in another town, and it had gone on for 4 years. And then pandemic arrived. And through the pandemics and the fact that we had quickly to decide, shall we cancel the whole thing or shall we try online? Because people were starting exploring, what can we do? And in Italy, it arrived quite hard and quite early. So we had to decide quickly, what are we going to do? Because we had to send a message to the people. Usually by mid-month, there will be the invitation to join, wherever we join. And we decided, because it was a group of us, it was actually 2 of us, hosting the social dreaming ongoing matrix. And we decided that we had to go on. We went online. We had a few trials, and then we said, let's do it. And it was quite amazing because many, many more people came. Most of them we have never met. We had just sent the invitation, but obviously had spread around and picked on a need to try to make sense about what was going on. And it was also a need for us because at that point, being online, we decided to be 4 of us hosting the matrix, also because there were many more people. And going through the material, because we usually take notes about what goes on, of the dreams, basically, and obviously not of the people, because sometimes we have no idea who they are. But we started to see that there was a thread prior to the pandemics, because there were some unexplicable dreams. At the time, we were in town in Italy, and it was full of the topics of immigration and other more specific topics, themes, but certainly nothing to do with pandemics. But we started to observe that there were dreams like there is an asteroid which is going to fall on Earth. Another dream, I had an injection in the middle of my forehead. I don't know what it was for. And there were, just to give you an example, or there's been, like something happened which we have no idea what it is, including there is an unknown big dangerous object which falls onto the crowds and many get killed.
Wow. And this is pre-pandemic.
That was pre-pandemic. It was November.
Isn't that interesting?
It was.
Yeah. So November 2019. Yeah,
yes,
wow.
19 January, when we still didn't know. But it was quite interesting to read them and also being shared with the people who joined, the dreamers who joined the Matrix, to realize that perhaps also historically, COVID had already arrived, but we didn't know what it was or where it was from. And I don't know, it was very interesting and useful to look at dreams, about what they were saying.
Yeah, those images fit with the images that we were given also at the DRI, with people would often report of like alien dreams, or as you said, asteroid dreams, or an alien ship coming. and that they were either being injected or touched on their sort of third eye area, which, has often got psychic links, the third eye, hasn't it? And
Yes.
so that's really interesting that that's what you were also noticing, but pre-pandemic in the social matrix. Wow.
Yes, and also there was, being Italy the first one in Europe to the explosion of the pandemic, it was also very interesting because there was a dream which was associated and a lot because of the content of it. It was like being in a boat, and don't forget that the immigrants come by boat here, and not being wanted and nothing, not able to land, which was a bit of a turning point of connection between the themes emerging prior to the pandemic and the pandemic. Because at that point, we realized that as Italians, we were not welcome anywhere else. It was before the whole of Europe was sealed. It was something which belonged to Italy at the beginning.
Yes.
In the back,
yes, very true.
And it was opening, a dream like that opened a whole conversation and reflection on how easy it to be on the other side. We had been talking for a long time about people who were crossing the Mediterranean in order to be less hopefully welcomed in Italy and being pushed away, and how easy you can change a role and suddenly you're not wanted.
And find you're the one that's being rejected or
Exactly.
Chastised in some way.
Exactly. So, no, just to mention something about the how interesting was to follow the pandemics, but not just the pandemics, but also the whole context around the inability to touch each other, to go out of the lockdown was very strict in towns, in cities in Italy. And so sort of it was a way of reflecting dreams, shared dreams was a way of reflecting and being able to give voice to what was happening around us and trying to give meaning, some kind of meaning. And we collect, we always do, because that ongoing by now is online because so many more people can join. And we just send the link and people come. There is no payment, and it's just very free. Is how can I say? The payment are dreams shared and nothing else. And it has, during that time, I don't know, we had an experience of how valuable was to have a space like that.
I mean, I was thinking how healing that is as well, and how sharing one's dreams in a collective social environment, you, as you say, being separated from the dream, suddenly there is a group healing in some way that you can share an experience like this. And it's not so isolating, I think is the other word I would use.
Oh, yes, for sure. And to not having to bother who are you, what is your job, and why are you here, it was terribly liberating because you could just join. We were only sending the invitation and the mailing list was getting bigger and bigger, but there was no control of who is coming and why you're here. It was all... Yes, it was a real open space. And I know from, because at some point we've been asked by Austrian colleagues who are psychoanalysts and group analysts, if we wanted to share something of our experience, because they found they were doing a research on all the dreams which had been collected during the pandemics. But in their experience was more in the individual sphere. And they were having all sort of parameters and things about, and they had heard about this ongoing matrix, and they wanted to add something about that because it was the only collective experience of sharing dreams. And yes, it has been published, and I have it there, but it is in German, which unfortunately I don't speak. And so I cannot tell you what the dream was.
The Dreamboat is a project of the DRI Center for Dream Studies. If you're the kind of person who is fascinated by the mystery of dreams and you want to learn more about the transformational power of dream work, check out our workshops, lectures, retreats, and training courses at driccpe.org.uk. Also on the website, you can support the podcast and all of DRI's work by becoming a member for just over £30 a year. That gets you discounts and first access for our ticketed events, as well as access to videos and extra material online. That's driccpe.org.uk, and you can find the link in the show notes. Now back to the podcast.
Franca, I mean, I find all the pandemic stuff really fascinating. And it also reminds me very briefly of the sort of 9/11, actually, and how I know a lot of people who shared dreams before 9/11 of exactly that, the big tall tower, the collapsing tower. It's very ancient in terms of the tarot image of the struck tower in the major arcana. And a lot of people are having dreams along that. If not dreams, some people were having visions, which I find really quite interesting. So again, the notion of precog collective consciousness is fascinating, isn't it?
It is. It is.
I was going to say, from a psychoanalytic point of view, how do you place that out of interest?
I place it in being, I mean, this is not any theory or anything, it's just from experience, is that we do live in somehow a very boundaried world, and also boundaried what we expect we know, and the idea that you are, how can I say, a bit of an isolated being. And working with dreams opens to different potentialities, which obviously we have. Nobody has given this dream, or you haven't conjured up. You just open to the possibility that you know more than you actually think you do. There is a colleague, I don't know if you know him, who died quite recently, a psychoanalyst from New York, who has written a book, What You Don't Know, You Know, which is, I think, is very
Nice
telling.
title.
Yes, it's very telling about how at times we constrict ourselves. And if I go into another field of social dreaming, which is consultation to organizations, often, I don't know, I'm called for some reason, and I'm told that this is the problem with this particular department or something. But if you use as a methodology social dreaming as part of many other tools, but certainly social dreaming, you realize that the problem is often is something else, and people obviously know, because at the beginning I may not have any idea about what is going on, apart from meeting from the people who have commissioned the work. But then what is really going on can come up in a matrix, and usually are the people, let's call it the employees, the workers, the people who are within the organization who know.
Wow, that's quite incredible. So you go into a company or an organization and you study the organizational dreams to see what's actually happening within the collective, to use the Jungian terms, of the company. That must be a really forward-thinking corporation of some kind, or organisation, government or whatever. That's quite incredible, Franca. And people don't mind you doing that either.
I don't say, oh, I'm going to do social day. I just come with my, how can I say, professional persona, who I am, the CV and all the rest of it. And I say, I'm going to do a group intervention, and which will articulate in various events, and which are all connected in order to analyze and then hopefully to transform the situation, which is now into a better one. I never go and say, look, I'm going to do social dreaming, because people don't know what it is. And I say,
Exactly.
so what? And so what? But I say, I do, that is my intervention, and I'm going to use various tools.
Yeah. How lovely. I mean, to analyse a business's dreams, that must be quite fascinating. What type of examples have you got around that?
Well, by now, many. I think from the very, very first one, which I then had to take to Gordon and ask, what am I doing? Which was many years ago, and it was in a small firm of young people who were preparing European projects. And they were at a point of crisis, and they called me officially to do a communication workshop. But then when I talked to them, I said, but this is a major crisis. You are going, what on earth? Why do you do a communication workshop? You are not communicating that you are doing, actually you are going to give the sack to most of the people within the firm. So what are you doing? And then I said, can I do what I would do in this case? And I tried for the first time to use social dreaming, because it's fast, elegant, and it gets to the point to see where we are actually with this small firm. Because it was chaos. And of course, it came out what was going on. The idea.
And what type of dreams were people having that?
I tell you one, it was over 20, nearly 30 years ago, but one that was the beginning of unraveling the problem was the dream of a woman who dreamt that she had, they were all very young, most of them didn't have children yet. And this young woman said that she had a child already who was 5 and was all well dressed up, and she was going to walk with her. And in the dream, she was pretty amazed. She thought, I didn't know I had a child, and a 5-year-old child. And so that was the first. We started unraveling a work about their work situation. And in the end, they realized that it was like they were picking on the fantasy that this, how can I call it? This small, young firm working with European projects, when it was really a novelty, was something which could go on forever. And it would grow and grow and grow. But in fact, they hadn't put their mind into the fact that it was, like European projects. They come for a 5 years long term, and then something else has to start again. And they had not thought about it, nor their boss had thought about it.
Oh, interesting. About the legacy side of it all. The
legacy, exactly. And so they associated to the fact, because they knew what you don't know, you know, because already someone had been given the sack. And they thought they had an already 5-year-old child who can walk, who can come, who can talk. And they were actually still at the heartbeat of work of infancy, where you need to change the diapers, to wake up at night, to do...
Teach them how to walk.
Teach them how to walk. And so they had not a realistic vision of what was happening in their firm. And I mean, it was a much bigger project, but it started from that dream.
Oh, Franca, what a great example. Wow. And that, companies aren't thinking that their employees might be actually sharing thoughts about the company, which could help the company if it was shared properly. Isn't that lovely? It's a great example, I think, of what you mean by social dreaming. I really like it. Out of interest, are there any, in the social dreaming matrices that you're working with now, what's coming up now in the public sort of psyche, for want of a better description?
Mm-hmm. Let me think, because at the moment I'm so involved in the development of social dreaming international that I think at the moment I'm doing, yes, there is something that comes to mind. I'm quite involved with an event which is called Reflective Citizenship, which is an event, and I'll tell you why I'm mentioning this, because each event, which is a half-day event, which had been thought by a Serbian colleague after the Balkan Wars, where the whole of the social community network was shredded by the war. And she was thinking, what can I do to help building community and dialogue? Christopher Bollas talks about the unthought known. Talking, meaning applied to the work of social dreaming, that you tap in what is known, which is a lot, but it hasn't been thought yet. In the example that I gave you about this first consultation, in my experience, the first consultation using social dreaming, what was going on in the firm was known, but not yet thought. And in a sense, social dreaming is one way of revealing.
Yeah, crystallizing, actually. Yes, I like that as an idea. And so we were talking about reflective citizenship, just to sort of finish off. So what type of dreams are you seeing in that program now, would you say?
This is where I'm more at difficulties, because they are very close. There have been many, but, well, yes, I can say something, although I don't want to enter too much in the details, because it is very close. But anyway, I'm just saying that we worked in an international reflective citizenship at the beginning of October, and dreams highlighted many of the themes which are more contemporary, but also what the traces of the Balkans War, because we were in Belgrade, of the Balkan War left on people, and are still alive.
That is interesting, isn't it? I mean, again, it takes us back full circle to the Third Reich of dreams again, with that,
yes,
the impact of something like a war.
Yes.
Is still felt within the population. It's a scar on the psyche that's always going to be there, and how it jumps around in dreams is quite interesting. And as you say, in social dreaming, it's shared dreams within the matrix.
Yes.
Franca, thank you so much for joining me. I've really enjoyed it. And if anybody wants to be involved with the social dreaming, the International Network of Social Dreaming, I'll put a link up, obviously, in the show notes for people who'd like to find out a bit more, and how they can get hold of you.
I also enjoyed our conversation, and I hope that there will be, a connection which will go on. Thank you.
So, thank you for joining us for this week's episode. Don't forget to like us and leave comments on your favourite podcast platform. As I'm sure you know, that's the way we build an audience for the Dreamboat podcast and also to spread news about dreaming. And as we said, there are many ways you can share your dreams at the DRI, the Dream Research Institute.
Yes, we have courses, events, and workshops, and we want to hear from you. So check out the show notes for links, or find us on Instagram and on our Facebook page and on our website at driccpe.org.uk. And if you want to explore your dreams further, or you would like to support us, you can join the DRI as a member for just £30 a year. As a member, you will get discounts for all of our events and short courses. You'll get our newsletter with latest dream research news, and we'll also be adding other special member benefits during the year. Of course, members' dreams will always be given preference for reading on the podcast Dream of the Week slot. So go to the link on the show notes and become a DRI member today. Keep dreaming and keep sharing your dreams.